of Reality Podcast, a podcast about the game of life and the hero's journey we all experience. Let's jump in with our host, Dylan Watkins, as he introduces today's guest.
Welcome, young adventurers, and on today's podcast, I have Jay Levin. He leads a non-profit advocacy campaign, Equip Our Kids, whose focus is on raising the emotional intelligence of humanity, starting with our children and youth. Equip promotes getting what educators call social emotional learning curriculum into pre-K and 12 pre-K to 12 grade schools, motivated by the reality that 90% of public is unaware of the remarkable child, school, family, workplace, society outcomes of learning. Jay argues it is actually the most likely to social movement in the world to raise humanity's conscious on the mass level out of the paradigm of conflict, pain, inadequacy, and misery. So without any further delay, I'd like to welcome Jay. Hey, brother, welcome.
Hey, Dylan. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. So I'm super excited to talk to you. Social emotional learning is definitely one of the areas that I am highly focused on, and some of the work that I do. I'd love to learn a little bit about your journey that puts you on the path for advocating social emotional learning for kids K through 12.
Okay. Well, it started with a semi-dysfunctional family.
As it does.
Not the only one in the world, but as we all know.
Yeah.
And my response to it was to think there's got to be something better happening. It was just innate. And it wasn't something I really thought about. It was just something I felt. And so when I became a young journalist, what most concerned me was anything that made positive change. Could have been about racism, violence, etc. Social justice, poverty, but wherever I saw a potential to see what was transformative, I kind of jumped at trying to get my editors to let me cover it, and they did. They let me cover a lot of good stuff. But this was for a daily newspaper in New York. But very early on, I got curious about modern therapy techniques that were being used to treat drug addicts. So I convinced my editor to let me go do a series about this. So I spent a bunch of time in group workshops, individual sessions where I could, seeing the techniques work with addicts and seeing progress over a 6-month period of people changing, relating differently, understanding themselves differently, et cetera. So that convinced me of something that I already suspected, which is the basics of what we're doing now. And what that convinced me was that most human dysfunctionality, pain, craziness in your personal life, the people you get angry at, the people you get, et cetera, where you think you're inadequate, where you may join in violence or not violence, whatever. Those decisions are really from a lack of skills to know how to relate to yourself, what's happening interiorly with you and what's happening in your relationships to the world. And when that's a collective thing, and you learn more about child development process, and how sensitive we all are as children, and how we take in so much data, including the data of conflict, because we see conflict all the time, and data of judgment. We develop that judgmental mind. No baby comes in with it. We're already set up to create a world full of nukes, full of insurrections that are pain cause, full of personal relationship pain. And a lot of people walking around with their mind chattering, thinking, "What am I going to do with this and that?" and not happy with their lives, etc. So, the human condition, as we know it. You know,
nobody gives you a manual. Like, I mean, there's no like when you have a baby, you don't get a manual say, "Hey, this is how you run kids. This is how it operates." And the challenge is that when we solve certain issues, like the struggling being in poverty, or there's a lot of stressors, and they're not really given a manual on how to handle and communicate those conflicts. How do you communicate that? And then so much of that is like, people are in pain, and so they project the pain onto you, and then and then there's no internal narrative. It's like you don't know that your dad's struggling with his business and doesn't know how to put food on the table, and then when he comes home stressed, you think it's you think it's that piece of you, and then you don't know how to communicate there wasn't a pamphlet on this is how I relate my vulnerability, this is how I communicate my triggers, this is how I do my frameworks, and so we don't really have that. And you're right, that causes so much pain, which causes the fear, causes pain causes violence causes a cyclical cycle that goes around in a circle. So
and, many tens of millions of people taking antidepressants. Pumping kids full of Ritalin, all kinds of stuff.
It's so much easier to, you could do a ton of deep work and therapy and face your shadows and demons, or you could take this pill, right? And so many people want to take that pill because it's just easier.
Right. Or take that heroin, or take that, that meth, whatever. But the reason is covering up pain.
Yes.
It's like, okay, what am I going to do about my emotional pain? Well, why do you have the emotional pain in the first place? Because you didn't get the acknowledgement you needed. You didn't get to learn how to deal with people who were not, no baby tells their parents at 2 years old, you're very fucked up. Please go get yourself some therapy, right? It doesn't happen. Excuse my language. I don't know what information.
No, it's all fair game in this place. No, there's there's no.
So there I was, 22, 23 years old, and I'm seeing these changes, and it's convincing me that the most basic fundamental thing about heredity is, one, skills matter, skill sets matter, they make a difference, and two, the world is an effect. The cause is how we're trained to deal with the world. If we were trained differently, we'd have a different kind of world. We'd have a more loving, compassionate, mutually exclusive world, less racism, all the negative stuff, less violence, etc. And so I became so among the things we did was, as a journalist, I kept covering more, not just for our paper, but I got quite a number of chances to write for outside magazines about elements of the human development movement, including, of all things, Cosmopolitan magazine. They said, this is great stuff, these all new therapy techniques. Okay. So flash forward to some years later, and a few years later, I'm starting the LA Weekly newspaper, which I grew to be the biggest urban weekly in the country. And we were the only city urban weekly that covered the human development movement, along with all the entertainment, social justice, cultural richness of Los Angeles, you name it. And we became a big thing. We became the largest circulation, most advertising, and we became a big thing into culture. We really helped transform the culture. So, and then there was a point I learned about these practices developed from post-Freudian techniques and just the modern understanding of the mind and brain and how we work. That educators have developed, educators and child development experts have developed, called social emotional learning. The educators call it, but it's really just learning that raises emotional intelligence and relationships intelligence, and provides the kids step by step with the skills they need to really master life in a different kind of way.
Yeah.
So what happens if you can put these programs in a bad school full of gangs, drugs, violence, bullying, you name it, and racial conflict. You get those programs full on into schools. I know schools like this, 2-3 years, you're going to get the highest performing schools with kids really relating together, happy to go to school, and modeling how human beings should relate together, with understanding rather than reactiveness, because they've learned to manage their own reactiveness. It's not about their egos and my one up, one down. Fundamental training of child development that we come away from is, the background noise in our head is, am I one up, one down in any given situation?
Status.
Am I good enough here? Am I better than them? Is somebody better than me? If I walk into a room, what's going to happen, right?
Yeah.
So, so the good news is, even while we've got the nukes and ecocide happening, potential ecocide happening, and potential nuclear threats at any moment, nuclear accidents or deliberate war, At the same time, we've developed the tools to get the human species out of this mindset.
Yeah.
And we need to apply them. We need to apply them across the board. So the organization I run now, which is my sixth nonprofit, that I've started, is an advocacy campaign to get the public aware of this movement, the social emotional learning movement, and to get the schools to adopt it and states to adopt it and legislators to fund it. It's a phenomenal curriculum. And it turns out really remarkable, woke kids, if you can stand that term.
That's a dangerous term to be throwing around.
Yeah. Who are what human beings are meant to be, but we get pummeled out of it, which is co-creative, co-loving, co-collaborative, and good learning machines, and having not stressed out with depression, anxiety.
So I fundamentally love what you're talking about. There are some issues that I definitely want to address with you. One, we'll touch on it. So we're going to come back to the fact that you founded the LA Weekly, which is, you just kind of glossed over that real quickly. But I'm gonna put a pin in that. We're going to come back to that later. But I do want to address what I would say the elephant in the room on this is one of the challenges that people have with social emotional learning, especially in this survival scarcity mindset, gang affiliated, like status, basically bottom of Maslow's hierarchy issues, is that social emotional learning, speaking with vulnerability, isn't quote unquote cool. It isn't engaging. It's generally perceived as a sign of weakness, and it's a sign of if you expose your vulnerability. Some people say that opens you up for attack, and it's uncool to be emotional. It's uncool to cry. It's uncool to say, well, you hurt my feelings the way that you said that, and I'm sensing anger from you. How do you address in this high status desire for status seeking in this gang affiliations, to address the fact that it's uncool and unfun to have this social emotional learning piece?
So the paradigm that's created that sensibility and that evaluation of it, that very ignorant evaluation of social emotional learning, that same paradigm is the same paradigm that created World War II, Gestapo camps killing Jews, Pakistan, and all your personal damages in your life where you want to hate somebody or love somebody, etc. Violence against women, sexual abuse. That's the paradigm. It's like, I got to win. I got to masculine up, or the over masculinity of the paradigm. Throughout history, there's been no times in which there's been no wars for any long period of time. No rebellions against autocracy or against power structures. Right? No manipulation of good. And where does that come from? It comes from a mindset that I'm going to win over you, or our tribe is going to win over you. Right? We're at the end of the game with that. We're at the ecocide is happening out of that mindset. My oil company is going to make enough money to fuck you over, and we don't care about it. We'll cheat. We'll buy every legislator we can. We'll do everything we can to keep the oil things going. Yeah. So the politics are toxic. A lot of global thinking is toxic, and at the same time, there's a shift into consciousness of we got to wake up and we got to do something better. So the schools, they don't take these kids. They're very sophisticated. When they do these curriculum right, they're very, very sophisticated. Okay. They start with the kids wanting to come to school and feel good and not feel this Johnny's after me this way and this way. So there's techniques where they teach kids not to say, oh, I feel bad about him and that. That's not what it's about. It's really about being able the kids to learn to be positive with each other. What do you like about Johnny? Say that. It's also that goes then to skills about being able to identify your emotions, not just act on them. Be able to name them, right? Be able to name other people's emotions, right? Then about skills about how to manage your own emotions so you're not acting out. What are positive things you can do? And this is being done collectively, so the kids are practicing together and seeing that it works, right? Yeah. There's 8 or 9 other steps, but in those steps, they're learning increasingly sophisticated methods of conflict resolution, of knowing, of understanding what's their highest value, where they want to go, where their creativity lies, right? Understanding themselves and being willing to stand up for themselves in healthy ways, not to be pushovers. They're learning languaging for that, and they're learning skills for success in life. So anybody can go to our website, if they doubt this, see loads of videos about these kids where you think, oh my God, these kids didn't come out talking about, my feelings, like Levin said. That's not the languaging they use. That's the languaging projected from the old paradigm, right? What you see is kids who know how to handle their lives, who are very sophisticated. I've met 12-year-olds I put in the White House and run that versus the people who were running it in recent days, because they're problem solvers. They know how to deal with stuff. They know how to deal. They learn resilience. They learn to deal with failure. They don't treat failure as like, okay, I'm going to shoot myself or shoot you. It's more like, I'm going to go shoot the boss who fired me. It's more like, okay, what can I do to be creative and co-creative? And they get out of the amygdala part. The brain science behind this is very strong. They get out of the reactive part of their brain, the neural net, with all that lockdown tensions, fear, ego stuff of making themselves good enough, worrying about the other people, and into this very collaborative learning mindset. They're in a different part, literally in a different part of the brain, and that's science has validated that. So that's my response. It's just ignorance about what the learning really is about.
Yeah, it's ignorance about. It's also social momentum, right?
Yeah, there's plenty of social momentum behind that.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that you're trying to, you can't just shift one person and say, teach them all these skill sets and then put them back into the same culture and tribe and expect it to completely work and operate. Right. That's why I was like, how do you, and you touched on it a little bit, which was fascinating. And you're right. When your mind can literally shift based on what you're focusing on, right? If you're in the scarcity mindset, it is literally a part of your brain. Growth mindset, scarcity, Dweck, all that stuff. But if you're looking at that, like how do you leverage social behaviors to influence people as a collective unit to be able to get them to shift that mindset to a more woke, if you want to use that terminology, or a more enlightened mindset to and keep that sustainable? Yeah.
Well, that's what this program does. When they do it right, when they do it confidently, they don't too many schools just slapping on one or another parts of the program. It's a sophisticated curriculum. It's like going from learning 2 and 2 is 4 to going to be able to do advanced trigonometry. But the people who come out of it very well adopted to life and to creating a different outcome for societies, because they're not locked into the old patterns. If they're there and they look at nukes, they're going to think, are you kidding? This is not the way we need to be relating on global. So what's the way we can talk to other people about how to do this? We need to get out of the nuclear age. We need another generation or two who's really fully trained in this. That's why we want this in all schools. Because there's no question that they'll collaborate, create great things. One of the things about SEL in advanced schools, when they're really using it well, is project-driven learning becomes like automatic, second nature. Let's just collaborate together. They even learn math and teach each other math together. But they'll go out and do, one program up in Ventura County here. They did an analysis of the water needs of the county. And they came up with really good ideas because it was a school assignment, but let them get out in the world, learn about something else. And without I got to win over you, my ideas have to be better than yours. It's like, that mutuality that makes all the difference.
Yeah, and that absolutely does. And again, that it is an old paradigm, but it is something that it's this at a large scale, nukes and old societies and old ways. Needing to address the issues of the individuals and the households and these wraparound programs, because it needs to be at an individual level. You can't say, hey, the world needs to become enlightened to a kid who has troubles when he's at home and there's domestic violence.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So I love this. And I fundamentally believe that one of our superpowers is to use technology like we're doing to collaborate through space and time together to elevate.
Amen. Amen.
Right?
You're right there. Yeah,
So,
we need these conversations to happen on a much better level, and people to understand that their values can be worked out in different ways. Yeah,
which is beautiful. How do you use technology? Is this human capital primarily that you're leveraging, or is it programs and?
Remember, we're an advocacy campaign, so we don't run programs. There's thousands of program developers. So what we do is we advocate. We're like the Got Milk campaign of a few years ago.
Yeah.
We don't support any given brand.
Got it.
So there's programs that have been developed by experts for every age group, every kind of cultural group, et cetera. And so the schools have to pick the programs that fit them and lay them in step by step. So digitally, there are people looking at, okay, what can we do digitally? You know, there's some people starting to develop interactive games where they're solving, life problems rather than shooting the guy with the robots.
Yeah.
So that's one potential where they're giving the kids options to really play in life and exactly the kind of stuff that they're dealing. So that's a learning thing.
I love that.
Yeah.
And making it fun. Making it fun.
Yeah. John Lennon said, gave us that song, imagine all the world living life in peace.
Yeah.
Okay. So you can't imagine it and get there. You can't. Imagination is not enough. Imagination is your desire for it. You have to deploy the skills that in your personal life and how you deal with yourself, your inner life, your own behaviors, etc., and the skills to deal with the relationships with individuals, other groups, etc. It's a skill set.
Yeah.
Until we get the skill set on a mass level, the old paradigm of me up against you is still running the world, of me judging you. By the time we're 3 or 4, we're the download of judgment when no kid comes into.
Yeah.
Christ said, you want to know what's really the problem? You're all judging each other. It's your mindset, judge not, let you be judged. Yeah. That's a program. That's the program that runs civilization. And until we neutralize that program, however you want to do it, take these adult versions of this, go get yourself conflict resolution skills, go to a find a great hypnotherapist and let them neutralize all the back part of your brain that's judging you, judging others, making you with all your limited belief systems, get yourself out of your own pain one way or the other. And in better ways, learn how to relate better to the world. It's a skill set.
And I've seen you've referenced this a couple times. Skill sets, right? And you're talking about a relationship between the mindset and the skill set, right? And you have this mental operating system that's like, these are the rules I live by: kill or be killed, or we're better together, right? And there's these, and so if you could install a couple of mindsets and skill sets into these kids K through 12, what would you be the ones? And if you could just download them right in, what would those be for you?
Well, the skill sets, of course, are how to understand what's happening to another human being without being reactive to it. The skill sets to learn how to deal with a person who may not have your level of understanding without aggravating their system. That becomes a systemic level. But you can teach. There's a great study that they took 2 groups of 4-year-olds in preschool, and one they put a very sophisticated, that age relative, social emotional learning program in, emotional intelligence training program in. The other group from the same basic population in the same schools, and they followed them for 25 years. After that, after this, just a couple of months of this learning, the group that had the experience dramatically outperformed in life on all the positive sides: happiness, good, healthy relationships, healthy physical and mental health, career success, right? far less crime, toxicity, alcohol, substance abuse, etc., anxiety and depression than the group, the kid of 4-year-olds that didn't have these trainings. So when you get a young mind and you start putting these skills in, and if you're listening and you're an older mind and you want to find the adult versions of it, go for it. You'll be much happier and you'll create a better life around you.
Yeah.
When you put these in at a young age before they're so inoculated with all the shoot 'em ups and watching all the good guy, bad guy stuff, and this one is not good enough, and that one's going clicking up in school against this one, and and my group is better than yours for this reason, and white power, black power, you name it.
Yeah.
It's separation consciousness, and it does know that it's operation becomes operational part of the brain, and it's denying us the healthier, more successful parts of the access to our brain, including our divine wisdom, our deeper knowingness. Everybody's ever said, "Oh, I should have done that. I had an intuition. I should have followed my intuition." Yeah, you should have followed your intuition. Your intuition is your knowingness of what's in harmony and what lies with you.
Yeah.
He lies with you, and what doesn't he lie with you, right?
Yeah.
And then but then in the child development process, it gets so crazy, your mind starts chattering away. Should I do this? Should I do that? Well, what about this? And what do I do that? Right? And most people die with their mind still chattering and looking back in their lives saying, "Oh, maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have done that." Right? Rather than, I know what to do. I know how to move my life forward.
Yeah.
I know how to deal with this situation.
Yeah. People often live lives.
That's the price we all pay.
Yeah. People often live lives of quiet desperation, go in the grave with a song unsung.
Yeah.
Right. So they have that same challenge.
They're still taking their meds as they die.
Yeah. And but the challenge being, right. But the thing is, they don't know. They don't have that. They have the reason why they have quiet desperation is because they don't have that skill set to be able to communicate. This is how I feel, and then they don't have that mindset to that conscious or unconscious permission to ask for the things that they want in a way that isn't violent or defensive or aggressive. Which is that hard thing is to sit in that uncomfortable pocket and not lean on with anger and not retreat with fear, but to sit in there and be like, I'm going to stick this out.
Yes.
And I'm going to unrespond. It reminds me of, you ever read, Man's Search for Meaning? It was a crazy story, about Viktor Frankl, who, it was a personal tale of a guy going to Auschwitz. And that was he actually survived 4 years in Auschwitz, and he got to see like people go through the most horrific conditions. And then some people chose to be angels and some people chose to be demons. And that really, it's how you respond to the most horrific situations. It's an amazing psychological experiment in terrible conditions, but it's an interesting way to learn how do you respond to these, the struggles of life in a way that creates more space and more consciousness without causing so much pain, because that's what it's, so much pain.
Right.
And
exactly. So much pain.
So much pain.
So how do you respond?
How do you respond? Let me ask you this situation. Someone triggers you, right? Someone does something to you. How do you armor up against the woes, the slings and arrows of fates? What do you personally do? Do you have a mantra? Do you have a pattern? Do you breathe? And
the pattern I have is, even if I don't get triggered that often, but if I do get triggered, the pattern I have is to do this exercise I do in my mind that takes me into a sense of seeing the other person's wounds, right? And so I'm kind of blessing them and either responding in a nonviolent communication way or not responding at all, but to not add fuel to the fire. And occasionally I miss. Occasionally I get triggered. I didn't have social emotional learning in my childhood. I had a fair amount of drama in my childhood.
I feel you.
but I've been through a number of trainings. Aside from I've run 6 media companies and I've started 6 nonprofits. So aside from being a media entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur, I also got trained myself in these practices. I took a master's degree program in spiritual psychology as a break from after I created a TV network that didn't make it because they didn't roll out the channel space they promised. I would have been very successful. And we couldn't hang on more than 4 years. So I took a break and I learned that I had some skills to work with people. And a lot of people came to ask me to work with them from this class.
Yeah.
And so I did it for about a year and I banked it down to about 10% of my time. But I've worked with hundreds of people in the last couple of years. And it just affirms for me that if I teach people skills in a different mindset, you get dramatically different results in terms of how they think of themselves, where they are in their lives.
Yeah. There's 2 interesting things you said there real quick. So one is, so the exercise that you run, attempt to run when you can catch it, is when you feel triggered, when you feel like you're feeling heat coming at you, that your temperature rises, you imagine the person and you imagine their wounds and you bless them and you basically give them love. You send them compassion.
Yeah, even it's the love of not commenting, not responding back in a similar manner. Once or twice occasionally I'll lose it and say so, but basically it's if I'm really in a serious good, there's a whole nonviolent communication procedure and process I would use.
I'm super familiar with nonviolent.
NVC.
Yeah.
But if it's a shorter thing, then I'm thinking I like say, okay, that's my old paradigm. What would I do for my new paradigm? And try to sit down, imagine it, put myself in that energy field and act from that energy field. So instead of writing somebody a note saying, you're being incredibly disrespectful and insensitive in what you're doing, right? I'll say something like, calling them to step up into this possible opportunity and not miss it, and then missing it, also be aware that you might be causing us serious loss and damage, right? So
that's interesting.
Mindset. Yeah.
Interesting. So instead of framing it as a negative, you frame it as an opportunity, and you pleasantly challenge them to step up to the situation. And instead of saying, you've hurt because generally with the nonviolent communication framework, because I use virtual reality to teach nonviolent communications to young youths and stuff. But I know it doesn't work as well in the hospitality space, because it's very difficult if you're like a server to communicate how you feel, because generally when they're rude, that the guest or the customer is always right, kind of thing. But,
right.
And you can't say, well, you've hurt my feelings, this is how I feel. But I really love that way that you put that as a thing, where you're like, instead of saying this incredibly intense, say you have an opportunity right now where you could step up to a situation that can really like elevate us to another level.
Right.
Could we try this again with a different spin?
Right. Every issue is an opportunity. That's the kind of thing. But it also, just know that nonviolent communication, SEL, does not say, you made me feel this, right? What it says is, I see you're feeling that, you told me you're feeling this. I see you feeling this. That brings this up in myself and my own feelings, right?
It's fair. You're right. You're owning it.
And owning it. And then you're basically saying, let's find a road to operate from the highest level, right? Because I'd like to see us operate from goodwill and things like that. And let's both see if we can get there. I'm really shorthanding this, but it's the training takes some work, but it's worth doing.
100%, yeah. And that it's a powerful framework, but again, it's much like anything else, easy to understand, difficult to master, especially in the subtle nuances of human communication, which is about as nuanced as it gets.
It's very difficult to master because you're trained to attack.
Yeah.
Trained to defend and attack. That's where most modern living and child rearing, parents don't like, they cause you bad, you're a bad kid, etc. That's an attack.
Yeah.
That's the training. We live in a generation, it has to. I mean, there's an underlying force driving evolutionary change now because it has to, because the collective consciousness understands, which is why so many people are freaking out on an unconscious level. They understand the matrix is not working anymore, right? It's very dangerous.
Destructive.
The people who are working the higher levels of the matrix are starting to succeed in life, because they're starting to adopt these. Companies are starting to hire for emotional intelligence and train their staffs. Google did a lot of good research on what companies perform better, which teams perform better. The high emotional intelligence teams that have either learned or not organically know how to deal with others, or the IQ teams. The EQ teams consistently outperform the IQ teams. Supposedly the IQ teams. So it's really about what field of relating this to the world am I putting out?
Yeah.
How much am I in touch with? What part of me is managing my behaviors and my responses day in, day out, including my work schedules and things like that. And recognizing a really crucial thing. That the other person who's acting out, right?
Yeah.
They're acting out not because they're bad guys, but because they're badly trained. Right? It's not their character; it's their upbringing.
Yeah.
We now train parents pass along prejudices. Families. When I studied the course, we would do family dynamics, and you could predict the personalities and character relationships of distant relatives based on once you understood the paradigm of how the current generations were relating, because it's passed down generation. We live in an era where we can break that historical mold because the skills are there. That's the biggest. There's revolutionary and evolutionary and revelationary skills. And they seem like small kinds of things, but they're really, really collectively powerful.
It's an incredible time that we have the ability to break the chains of pain, the circle of pain.
For the first time in human history on a mass level.
On a mass
first
level.
Time in human history, we have that possibility.
Yeah, and they talked about there's the intelligence quotient, right, which is the IQ. There's the emotional quotient, which is another one, and there's a new one which is in the same vein. They have different terminologies, but they call the story intelligence, which is the ability to rewrite your own stories in your head.
Right. That's a technique.
Yeah,
Right. And that's a mind retraining technique.
Yeah, but we're really talking about. It's like we're literally playing the game of life, and you're rewriting your own rules in your head. Being able to say, I'm going to choose a better path, which is hard, which is a hard thing to create that new neural pathway.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
Right. So if you have a desire to change, you have that desire, and you got to go out and you find yourself the workshop you need, because you got to learn the skills to get you there, and find the community support group that'll help you get there.
Yeah. And it's same as to connect with people as the same for avoiding Skittles, like there's you have these base desires, right? And I feel like the same thing. I feel like the urge for sugar, like there's two forms of energy. There's like quick, powerful, like pain. Pain is a form of energy. It will get you to where you need to go, but it's destructive. Right, versus this collaborative energy that isn't as immediate, but overall enriches the soul and builds over time.
Yeah,
which is super powerful. Let me ask you a question in terms of like, what's your overall like holy grail for all of this? I mean, you put 6 nonprofits together. You've gone to be spiritual psychologists. Like, what is the ultimate holy grail for you through all of this and your nonprofit?
Well, look. I'd like to, when I finally die, I'd like to feel that the matrix has been laid, at least there. Not that all the shit in the world have gone away. We'll all be completely having incredible co-creator fun and building great civilizations, but that the matrix is there for success. That the human species, will survive and not take a lot of other species with it, as we're in process of doing now. The water crisis coming up has come. Hundreds of millions of people are going to die, and millions are dying now from it. So it's all from a mindset of who's got the privileges, who doesn't, how we've organized to be with each other, and how to organize to have our communities. So that's a big deal, and so that's the goal. And after a lifetime of looking at stuff and supporting a lot of causes, including money out of politics, whatever I thought was the leverage, the fulcrum, media was the first fulcrum. I can guide people to share with people better opportunities. But I just concluded after, I'm pretty sophisticated. I've been out there a while. I just concluded that these kids, and gone to enough schools and seen these kids, people can watch them on our Equip Our Kids website, which I hope you'll share. This is the best change agent in the world, because all the new age consciousness, the higher stuff, all that stuff that's going on, it's great, and we need more of it for adults. But if we can get to the kids on a mass level, and there's enough movement in the education world to get this. So that's why we want to get it out there and ask everybody to go to their schools and say, we want social emotional learning. Every parent listening to this should definitely go to their schools and get other parents to do it. Everybody not there should just go to our website and find a way to help make it happen.
Yeah. And I have the Equip Our Kids in the bio. So this is currently going across like YouTube and Twitter and all those places. And the Equip Our Kids link, or at least the name of it, is inside the bio. And then we'll put the official link in the bio when we publish this out. And I completely agree. The social emotional learning, the ability to connect with yourself and connect with others in a non-violent way and communicate how you truly feel authentically, but also vulnerably, but also in a way that's non-aggressive, is like the Holy Grail for that social emotional learning piece. And it sounds like you're trying to rewrite the matrix. We live in the matrix. Maybe it's real, maybe it's not.
Yeah. I didn't create. I so honor the people who created this, and I get to hang out with these wonderful educators who I think are the angels of the planet. So we're just a service to these angels of the planet, who people don't recognize as angels of the planet. But they're wonderful people, and the people really promoting this in step by step on the grassroots level, in the schools, on macro levels, are really, really historical agents of what's a potentially mass possible change. And even if the adoption is uneven now, as they get more sophisticated in what techniques work and how to introduce them to schools, it'll get better and better. And we got to get it to a point where every country in the world wants these and has them.
What do you think is if that's your Holy Grail, what's the dragon? What's the big thing that you don't know if you can defeat to make this happen? What's the big challenge, the big threshold guardian blocking you from your path to achieving this ultimate vision?
Well, the dragon is the old consciousness. People not awake to it. People think, people saying exactly what social emotional learning is about this and this. Right, right wing. It's the old mindsets and the lack of understanding of how. I mean, we have this. We obviously the country is completely split, right? But it comes from a kind of ignorance about where the human this experiment is at, and the understanding of what the opportunities are to change now, and what's real about it. What's not taking away your privilege, but adding to the richness of your life, rather than thinking I'm going to own my own lifestyle, and et cetera, and my own privileges, and to hell with you, But underneath this, if I may, there's a bigger kind of divine truth, Richard, which is we do not know who we are and our capacities, right? When we're imposed with these false belief systems, when we're imposed with this mindset and this way of being in the world on a mass level, right? So, you only like it's watching these kids suddenly become these mindfully creative, thinking, wonderful kids because their minds are not about, am I doing well? My parents love me, et cetera, et cetera. This guy going to come and beat me up, et cetera. Their mindsets are just organically like co-creative and things and co-collaborative. And beyond that, so they have the potential to create another world. But we don't understand the powers of our divine essence. One of the things I do is, I think I may mention, I coach a bunch of CEOs. Mm-hmm. We get together once a month and we all help each other and I facilitate it. Mm-hmm. And I try to teach them the power of mind and thinking and intention and belief and not to and servant leadership to the team, creating healthy teams, et cetera, and to be successful. So, and not to think they have to do everything and control things, but to find what they do best, et cetera. But really to keep it belief more. So I'm going to tell this fast story.
Yeah, go for it.
So one of the meetings about 4 years ago, I had, I thought that I got them poised about the stuff about belief and intention. Mm-hmm. And I said, we usually have a speaker at the meeting about some elements of business, that they can learn from. And these are all highly intelligent people. And I thought, I said, next month's speaker is going to be a surprise, right? And surprise was I brought in this woman who's quite evolved, and she goes to parties and teaches people how to bend spoons that couldn't otherwise be spoons. That kind of game. Yeah. Everybody thinks it's cheap. Okay. Yeah. So she she brings in a box from Costco, unwrapped. Everybody says everybody take a spoon out, try to bend it. And people get a spoon and they try to bend it. And these are pretty good, strong spoons. Just use your physical force. And then she says, it's one of the people, give me your spoon and take another one out of the box. This is a brand new box, right? So she takes this spoon, she does this meditation, which is calling in this self-empowering divine power. She says, I'm putting my intention and belief into a certain part of this spoon. And then I'm going to wait and see what my intuition tells. I'm not going to try to force it, prove anything to you, but just trust my intuition and I'll know when it's ready. And then I'll bend the spoon, right? That's what I expect. So she goes through this whole thing and she bends the spoon that this other guy she took it from couldn't bend, right? So there's no hand swapping, things like that. So then she says, okay, now you have the same spoons in all your hands that you couldn't bend. I'm going to take you all collectively through this process, right? Mm-hmm. So she takes us collectively through the process. After seeing this, and it's really a good meditation. She takes into this good meditation, like being with a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher. And then we start to challenge energy. The bottom line is, of the 11 people in the room, 10 of us bent our spoons. We couldn't before, right? Because we set the belief and intention that the matter was measured by the higher energy field we could channel in, right? So, see this? It's completely twisted. This wasn't mine. This was a thin young woman in the room who just took it like a pretzel that she couldn't bend early and turned it into a pretzel, into this. So until we get out of this paradigm that we're in, we don't know who we are. Until you in your life start finding your own powers by finding your way out of that paradigm that's still running you, your negative thoughts, your belief systems, the ways you relate to people, your reactiveness, finding adult versions of healing. You won't know who you are. Really feel a sense of who you are, what your direction should be, etc. What crazy great things you could do in the world once you learn to harness those energies.
There's what touched on was something interesting. At first, I was getting ready to call BS when I thought she was going to bend it with her mind. And I was like, we're getting into the woo-woo territory. But what you touched on something that was actually super powerful, which was people say they believe, but they don't always believe. People will give lip service to something, but there's something that is on the fundamental level. If you truly believe that you can do something, if you truly believe that you can affect change, because there's that learned helplessness. There's that like, I can't do it, so why even try? And then but then if you absolutely baby underneath a car and a mom can take it and flip it upside down because it is 100% needed. It is 100% certain. And
exactly right.
Yeah. But you got to get to that level of certainty. There's levels of certainty that if you can get to, and it sounds like she helped people get to that level of certainty. And you can do that with, can I respond and not react? Can I hold space without dominating? Can I, and one of the things you're talking about CEOs was like, how do you have a deep fundamental belief that the collaboration and the co-creation is going to come out better than your one-minded domination of a situation?
Well, right. The one-mind domination is the old paradigm.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not the collective intelligence paradigm.
Yeah. The collective intelligence is more powerful, and that willingness to let go and trust the group, and that's going to lead somewhere is powerful.
So people may not bend the spoons, but they have the bent, the old paradigm lands us in life that seems to be like wandering around in a labyrinth. Is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? When you follow your own calling, then and what you think is you, right? The world tends to bend in your direction.
Yeah,
that happens. I mean, the LA Weekly I started because I got hired to run somebody else's paper. That person got seriously injured, and they shut it down, the paper. And I had this team together on their money, and I knew nobody in Los Angeles, but I had this absolute belief that we could do it. It took me 9 months to get the money. I didn't know a soul in LA who had any money, but I started working it, and it came together.
Yeah.
Talk to anybody who's been successful, really successful in life, right? Yeah. It's because they think, I'm on my right path. I know this. I'll go through the challenges it takes, and I'll just keep perfecting my own discipline and machinery and lack of trust, and making sure I'm not in my own way and not creating chaos around me. So So that's their bending their inner spoons.
Yeah. The ability to have that fundamental belief that you can, because what you said is like, I absolutely believed. I may not get it right the first time. I may not, but you're like, I am on the path, and that ability to be flexible but continuously move towards your destination is something that we could all learn, and that's
Absolutely.
Part of that.
That's resilience.
Yeah, co-creation, social emotional learning. That's beautiful. What is there anything else you'd like to let people know about before they can find out how to get a hold of you?
In what regards? I mean, now's the time. This is the period when everybody's got to step up in life.
This is the period everyone's got to step up. Yeah, I guess I would say this: if you were to put a billboard advertising that this billboard would be seen by everybody. It would hit everyone's phone. It would go into every social media channel, and they could see it. What message would you leave with people?
Probably the opportunity is here to change the outer world by changing your inner world and learning the skills to deal with the outer world. Something along those lines.
I love it. I love it. That's beautiful. Change the outer world by changing your inner world.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's do it together. Let's all change our inner worlds in order to change the stuff we don't like in the outer world.
That's beautiful.
And that's skill set. Go get the skills.
Go get the skills. Love it. And if people want to find out more about you, more about Equip Kids, where would they go to find out more?
Well, the website is Equip Our Kids, EQUIPOUR Our Kids .org. So there's lots of information there, and it's, you don't have to read everything there. You don't have to watch every video. You just get a taste of it. But we keep posting people to what you can do about it. And there's very simple things people can do about it. You can just pick up the phone one day, call your school and say, I live in a neighborhood. I'd like to have all my neighborhood kids have social emotional learning, period. Call your legislator, send your legislator a quick mail. Hey, I'm looking for you to spend a bunch more money on social emotional. Easy things where, and then, put it on your social media and say, hey, every parent, we got to go get this together for our kids and for our society.
I love that. So have the fundamental,
and throw a few bucks our way too. That's always something.
So have the fundamental belief that you can have the change in this world. Change your beliefs. Reach out. Send a message to the schools and the authorities so that they can change their beliefs, so that we can all collectively change the fundamental beliefs together.
Right.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we have the learning now that our grandparents didn't have. Nobody had, and throughout history, nobody, was not on a mass level. They were always, enlightened sects, but not at a mass level. So we got to take that learning to a mass level, and recognize that we do live in a time of extremes, and it's not just the extreme heat. It's extreme splits between our minds and reality, and how we're co-creating pain in the world rather than co-creating joy and connectedness and healthy solutions to all our challenges. Yeah.
Unify, don't divide. Cooperate, don't.
And again, it's just words until you realize, what's the training I need to come into that, live it out, right? And come out of my own drama and into a world of my own creativity and self-expression and success and collaboration.
I love it. Jay, it's been an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate the advocacy that you're doing.
Thank you.
Totally resonate with this. It's a beautiful message, and if we could install our kids with social emotional learning, this world would be a better place. Heal us from the inside out.
Yeah,
Jay, thank you so much, brother. Have a beautiful and blessed day, my friend, and I will see you in another reality.
Same here, brother.
All right, take care now. All right, bye. See ya. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Heroes of Reality podcast. Check out heroesofreality.com for more episodes. While you're there, you can also take the Heroes quiz to find out what kind of hero you are. Or, if you have a great story and want to be on the podcast, tell us why your hero's journey will inspire others. Thank you for listening.